Welcome back to my whole Recovering Homeschooler series. So, today, we are going to talk about something that probably I have to explain to almost every person I meet multiple times. Still smudgy, but better. I feel like to survive in the world, you have to have certain cultural understanding, which a lot of it we get from shared experiences, whether that be memes or movies or music, and there's a lot of things that you're just expected by a certain age you are familiar with. Not so when you're homeschooled, okay? My biggest thing, and I made this a phrase that I will tell people, assume that I haven't seen, listened to, whatever, X, and be surprised when I have. So if it's a book, assume I probably haven't read it. If it's a movie, assume I probably haven't seen it. If it's music, assume I probably haven't heard of it. And then if I have, be surprised, and yay, look at you. And I always have to tell people that, because they'll be like, oh yeah, you know that movie? No, I probably haven't seen it. I probably don't know much about it. And then they're like, really, you haven't seen it? It's like, don't be surprised that I haven't, be surprised that I have. The last 10 years that I've been married, I have been catching up on so much content I missed growing up, because we literally were not allowed to watch anything or listen to anything except for a small group of Christian stuff. So I've been cramming a whole life into the last 10 years trying to get caught up. I am not caught up. I am still missing out on so much stuff. So comment and tell me the things I'm missing out on. These are some of the things I missed out on growing up. So we weren't really allowed to watch Disney movies. My parents didn't like Disney. They thought Disney was evil because it had magic, and it told you to follow your heart, and according to the Bible, the heart is desperately wicked and who can know it. So, anything we wanted to watch, our parents would watch it first, and then if there was anything in it they thought was against what their beliefs were, they either would fast forward that scene, or if there was enough in it, we just weren't allowed to watch the movie at all. That being said, we were allowed to watch a lot of weird things we really shouldn't have been allowed to watch. Looking back, I'm like, that's just weird, but it was considered like indie Christian films and stuff, which I will get to later because that's an entire thing into itself. And we had to sneak over to my best friend's house because their family was nice and relatively normal, and they were also homeschooled, which is why I say relatively, but they actually got to watch Disney movies. So I discovered some of my favorite movies like Emperor's New Groove and Tarzan and stuff at their house, and those are amazing movies with literally nothing wrong in them. But we weren't allowed to watch them because they were Disney. So we weren't allowed to watch Barney growing up because there was a time traveler in it. And I remember as soon as she started coming on the show, my mom was immediately, no, that's magic, that's black magic, that's Satanism, you can't watch that. So we weren't allowed to watch Barney. We never watched Sesame Street because our parents said that it was adult, and they didn't like the Muppets because the Muppets made adult jokes, so they said, which I love the Muppets now. I've gone back and pretty much watched all the old Muppet Show, and do they have a few things that shouldn't be for like 5-year-olds? Sure, but it's not like it's bad. The jokes just go over their head anyways. It's not like they would understand the like innuendos or anything that might be happening, and that's very minimum in the Muppets. That's not even like pervasive in the Muppets. I watch Deadpool nowadays, and he's my favorite. It's one of my favorite movies. Like, I've come a long way. We weren't allowed to watch anything that wasn't PG. Like, even PG, my parents were like, why would it be PG? That means parental guidance. That means there's something they could have left out in it. Those are the words I used to say. This could have been left out. I'm like, PG, they don't even make G movies anymore, do they? Like, almost everything is at least PG because they'll have some sort of stupid humor, slapstick, or, you know, toilet humor in it, like a fart joke or something. And, oh, now it's PG. Like, almost nothing is rated G, but we were only allowed to watch G, and if it was PG, my parents had to watch it. I was 18 the first time I watched a PG-13 movie, and it was a Christian movie at that. And I watched it against my parents' will, because I watched it in the youth group at church. We watched the Left Behind film, and I'm pretty sure that one was PG-13. Then, after that, we watched, my mom, she watched them first to make sure they were okay. We watched things like Pirates of the Caribbean, which is a huge leap from the other things we were watching. My parents only really let us watch things that were Christian, and like Christian indie films and anything in our church library. And there was some like inappropriate stuff in that church library because people would donate things, and if someone didn't know what it was, it'd be like, oh yeah, I'm sure that's fine because someone here at the church donated it. It must be great because everyone at the church is perfect. So they would just send a movie, and then sometimes we watch things and I was like, that's had a bare naked man in it, Mama. And they're like, oh my goodness, what are my children watching? And no wonder I turned out gay. It was stupid. It was very stupid because we weren't allowed to watch Disney. We weren't allowed to watch perfectly innocent things, but if it had the label Christian or something, or had some sort of faith-based lesson in it, we could watch it. I distinctly remember this one movie, and I talked to my sister about this one a lot. There's actually two that were actually pretty mentally disturbing. One was a Christian indie film. I don't remember what it's called, but the premise of it was this woman who worked in business, and she was having this angel visitor. This dude would come, and it was like first-person camera shot for him, and it played weird minor chords music, so we always called him Mr. Minor Chords whenever he would show up, and he was supposed to be an angel, and he was telling her on so-and-so date you're going to die. And the whole premise was that she'd been living her life in sin just because she wasn't a Christian and needed to get saved so she wouldn't go to hell when she died on this date, and she would just dismiss it, he's supposed to be an angel. And then the day came, and she's like, ha ha ha, I'm fine. And then her building catches on fire, the building she's working in. She runs downstairs, is standing out in the street, looking up at the building, and it's engulfed in flames, and she's screaming, I'm gonna burn! Like, that she's gonna burn in hell. She backs up and gets hit by a fire truck and dies. And that was okay to show kids. But no, we can't watch Mulan. So yeah, that was one of the things that was really messed up. The other one was another indie Christian film about this, and had this boy in it, and it was centering around this family. It was this mom, her two boys, and they had a dog. And the older boy was like living in sin, and he's a teenager, and he's rebelling, and he's not listening, and he's supposed to be, making a good impression on his younger brother who was like 10 or something. And I remember all throughout the film, they kept dropping, like the boy would run through the house, and mom would say, don't run through the house, and the dog would be running with him. She'd say, don't run through the house, don't run through the house. And the whole thing, they were talking about how they didn't listen to their parents, and bad things are going to happen. Then at the end of the movie, the older brother has like not been a good example, so the younger brother is not listening to the mom, because apparently that's the older brother's fault. You see him running through the house, she says don't run through the house, then the camera's like zooms out on the house, you hear this big crash, and screams because they had a glass back door. And apparently the boy running and the dog following him crashed through the door, and it killed them both. And so then the older brother feels so guilty because he wasn't listening to his mom, and that apparently caused the death of his brother. Not just his brother, but his dog, who... Physics, this doesn't even work. Like, even if the little boy smashed through the glass, that was a thick door. He would have just bounced off it. Like, he wouldn't have smashed through it. Even if by some magical thing he smashed through it, he wouldn't have died, most likely. He probably would have been cut up, and he would have had to go to the doctor. But then, he would have hit the force. It would have broken the wall. The dog would have been like, oh, he might have stepped on some glass, but he wouldn't have been hurt. Really. And it's weird. It's like they treated it like a car crash. Like, the sudden impact of both of them died. It was very weird, very traumatic. And I'm like, why was this okay to show young children? Like, why was that okay? So, these are some of the weird things that we grew up with. And I have tons of more movies that are like that. Also, apparently something was old. My parents thought it were okay. Because apparently nothing bad was ever made, in the time that they were growing up. Nothing was on the television that was inappropriate back then. So, if it was like old cartoons, we were allowed to watch it. We watched some very disturbing old cartoons. Very depressing, very just weird. Because it was old. So, clearly... that was fine. I showed some to my husband, and I think I've wounded him for life. If you ever want to know, Christmas Comes Just Once a Year is absolutely horrible. Don't watch it. Just don't watch that little... yeah. Anyway, post your comments for me. I'm going to make a whole video answering people's questions. If there's anything else you want to hear about, I might make a whole topic about it on a video, because... why not? My childhood was interesting, and I like to share it with people, because... growing up, I thought this was normal, and then I become an adult and realized that was not normal. That was very weird. So, I'm sharing that with the rest of you to see what you think. Thank you for your time, and I will see you next time.